Sorry, I had to shine my pleather up. Now all I need is like a cigarette stick. Coming to LaGuardia was definitely like where I got to just let it really all hang out, because at home, like, you know, things were tough. Like you had to be tough because my mother was tough and I had to be tough, you know, and I never really got to talk to her about like a lot of the things that I was going through.
Hip-hop throughout the years have been home to many what-if stories. What if Tupac was alive? What if Biggie was alive? What if XXXTentacion was alive? What if Mac Miller was alive? Damn. Hip-hop is home to a lot of tragedy too. And one of the most tragic characters in the history of this genre is one person that is actually very much alive, and that is the one and only Miss Azealia Amanda Banks. If you clicked on this video, I don't believe she needs any introduction. Girl boss, drama queen, Twitter warlord. She became infamous to the world at large for mostly her very public feuds against everything and everyone, rather than her music. To every based opinion that she has, she spits a transphobic, homophobic, xenophobic opinion later, which is kind of ironic because I believe she's bisexual, so she just kinda hates everything that isn't herself. And let it be understood throughout the rest of this video that I do not condone any of these Azealia's actions. Azealia's still present fanbase would argue that she's actually a misunderstood figure, a victim of the systemic racism of the mainstream music industry, and although that is not entirely untrue, I feel like it's disingenuous to say that the offensive statements and her hard to work with demeanor hasn't justifiably blown up on her face and led to her isolation on the business. And that is exactly why she is such a heartbreaking character in this genre, because I truly believe that once Azealia Banks was a talented and very creative rapper that didn't really manage to deal with the trauma of her come-ups. Great controversial artists on this culture is nowhere uncommon, but AB strikes me as a more memorable case of one because the consequences of her actions led to the downfall of someone who could have perhaps revolutionized and pushed forward their new wave to the still unexplored genre of hip house. In this video, I will do an in-depth review of Amanda's first and only album in 10 years, Broke with Expensive Taste, a flawed piece of music that is also one of my favorites. And through this record and the effects it had on the artist and the culture, try, and put an emphasis on that, to understand Banks both as a person and as an artist. And I'll do my best to express to you why we generally lost such an interesting figure in rap music. Also, it hasn't really been 10 years ever since Broke with Expensive Taste came out. It has been 8.5 actually, but I doubt a lot that we're going to have a new Azealia Banks record in the next year and a half. I have been wrong before, but not this time. Let us first take a quick look at the hip-hop scene of the early 2010s. Rap was still pretty imbued in that bombastic party time style that popularized in the 2000s by movements such as crunk. One important presence in the genre was Timbaland, as he was behind many popular not only rap, but also pop hits. Especially as his productions contained some very groovy electro beats that took the culture by storm. Pop, hip-hop, and electronic dance music were as connected as they have never been before. As such, albums like The End by the Black Eyed Peas or musicians like Flawed and David Guetta, who constantly collaborated with rappers and R&B artists, were at the top of the charts. This is a moment in time which I hold a very special care for, but I wouldn't be lying if I said that some aspects of the time hasn't really aged all that well. Especially regarding the last two artists that I mentioned, as their mix with rap and EDM hits me nowadays as superficial. Meanwhile, the rise of social media and its accessibility to the people led to a lot of artists and bands using those platforms to share their sounds. Two of the most well-known rappers of that period being J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar, but among those people, we also had Miss Azealia Amanda Banks. She first started releasing her music in YouTube and MySpace in 2008 with the Miss Banks nickname, even got a record deal with XL Records, in which she left pretty early for reasons, but in late 2011, now using her normal name, she collaborated with producer Lazy J to release her breakthrough iconic single, 212. 212 is Azealia's most popular song, which seems fitting because this shows every single thing that makes her special. So it's only fair that I start my review through this song. First off, the beat that Lazy J made here is simple but does its job well enough. It is interesting, not only at its time, but definitely by today, how progressive this instrumental is. It doesn't have a beat switch as per usual by today's hip-hop. The song naturally changes and evolves in ways that are in sync with the rapper.
Hey, I can be the answer. I'm ready to dance when the vamp up. Then when I hit that dip, get your camera. You can see even that bitch shit's the camper.
Which is what makes this different from the many tracks that ride a blast with his flow. There's a large amount of attention from both artists here to match their style to make them feel in sync, which once again is what immediately differentiates this song to the many EDM rap remixes we had at the time. And even if that, yes, this isn't the most sophisticated beat that Electro House gave us, it matches perfectly with Banks.
And I just wanna sip that punch with your peeps and sit in that lunch if you're treating. Kick it with your bitch, you come from Parisian.
I am one to usually call things punk when they perhaps are not, but I find it hard to describe her performance in the song with a better word. It's loud, it's angry, it's genuine, it's pretty clearly trying to provoke something or someone, as the lyrics are about Azealia stealing your girlfriend and then performing oral sex to each other.
And now she wanna lick my plum in the evening and flip that tongue to deepen. I guess that can't get any in. I guess that can't get any in.
I've listened to this track many times by now, and only recently I discovered that, yes, this is a bi anthem. It truly made the success of this song and this artist more fascinating when you discover that this is a young girl screaming at your face that she will steal your girlfriend, and this was one of the most popular songs in 2012. I especially didn't notice this because first, I'm Brazilian, it takes me 30 listens to understand what you're saying, and second, her biggest strength to me as a rapper is not what she's saying, but how she's saying. I will always love the gifted lyricist that imbues each line with attention and meaning, but I love me some rappers that like to play more of a sound and flow. Azealia not only does that with her rapping, but she outright sings. She even came out at the time to say that she sees herself more as a vocalist than a rapper. It's the usual artist trying to distance themselves from the genre that isn't as highly respected among pretentious people. But what is true is that Banks is a versatile artist, which gives much more room for creativity and exploration in her music.
Ayo, I heard you riding with the same tall tale.
I love this part of the song. Not only does it always make me hyped for the chorus, but also Amanda is surprisingly good at making these mesmerizing, almost psychedelic passages in her songs. And once again, this hit shows that very well. I also thought at the time that she was constantly repeating the combination 212, as it is the name of her neighborhood in Harlem. Or Harlem is a neighborhood in New York, which I guess is different from Manhattan. I'm sorry, I never understood that part of New York. But she just rhymes words in the same cadence as 212, clearly shown on the explosive chorus of the track.
What you got to when I ain't up there? When I ain't premiere, bitch, the end of your life there.
It's a pretty simple but pretty cool hook that keeps the verses entertaining throughout the song. Another thing that is present to a lot of Azealia's tracks to follow is the silliness. Obviously, every rapper has some traces of silliness. The braggadocious attitude is clearly a mask that we love to buy. But there's something when female rappers does it that just sounds gay. It's very hard to explain if you're not a part of the LGBTQ plus community, but there is something about presenting yourself in a silly way that we like, even relate to some extent, and consequently we like it when other people does it too. This, alongside the clear inspiration she had from ballroom and old school house music, you can see how AB managed to create a pretty faithful LGBTQ plus community in her fandom, even if she seems to dislike it.
Bitch, I'm in the 212 with the fifth cop niggas, the 210. Fuck your gun, you. When your goon sprayed up, that this bitch won't get him. Bet you won't do much.
Lastly, although all of the aggression, silliness, and kind of against the norm attitudes that she puts up here, Banks still calls herself young Rapunxel. Azealia Banks still sees herself as a figure of respect, glory, and prestige, even if she acted and will continue to act in ways we could consider indecent. To Azealia Banks, being angry is as important to her princess presentation as being affectionate and sensitive. And I think that's pretty cool.
The ship been mine. The ship been mine.
As we finish up with the song, I guess it's important to already talk about the idea of separating the art from the artist. Which I never swallowed it well because X art could have only been made by X artist. To some extent, the work that you put out is an expression of you. Only Azealia Banks could have made this song in the way that it is, and only she could have made any of the songs that I'm going to talk about. The girl who makes transphobic comments is the one that makes music perfect for drag shows. AB can be an intolerable contrarian, but from that person came 212, a song about unwavering confidence and reassurance of your own femininity, in contrary to what people may believe it to be. Bad humans are still humans. We can still relate to them to some extent. Consequently, their art can affect us in a positive way. So, what are we supposed to do? I don't know. My family made its heritage by pirating DVDs. I think I know very well where I stand. But you're one of those persons that likes to help the people that helped doing the arts that you like. We live in a capitalistic world, man. There's no conscious consumption in capitalism. Which does not mean that you can just say screw it and buy everything from every piece of garbage that you meet on the street. If you're appointed as a hypocrite or a group of people don't like you or interact with you anymore, that's the consequences of your actions. Good morning, Peter Parker. Why did you let Kamala Khan die? But what this means is that I think you should have to pick your fights. We can't fight against every injustice. That's not healthy. That's why everyone that uses Twitter is mentally ill. Including Azealia. 212 was popular throughout the world, especially in Europe, and quickly turned Azealia into an up-and-coming star. I didn't really follow celebrities at the time. I was literally 10 years old, so everything that I looked on the internet was like modded Kingdom Hearts speedruns. So many of the news and information that I could gather around this time is from many recent blogs, site, magazines, newspaper that I could gather. Anyways, Azealia really took the pop culture by storm because suddenly so many artists and celebrities respected and wanted to work with her. Early into 2012, she had the same manager as Lady Gaga, would put her pretty close to one of the biggest pop stars in the world, eventually leading to Banks announcing that they were working together and that the song would be released on Gaga's next record, Arch Pop. She was invited by Nicki Minaj to open her shows on Europe, but had to refuse because Amanda was busy with her own music. She connected with Pharrell right before the biggest phase of his career that led him to do the 3 biggest hit singles of the early 2010s. She was on the Met Gala after being only known for half a year at that point. The only one I remember doing the same has been Ice Spice just recently, and finally released an EP and mixtape on the same year. The album was also supposed to drop at the end of 2012, but it was delayed. It was all around a good year for Azealia Banks. Except when it wasn't. This early into her career, she was already starting to become very known for her very public disdain over other artists. Sometimes fair, sometimes not as much. And it started to becoming constant. She would be interested to work with a musician, they would work together, the song would never came out or had questionable quality, and then Banks proceeded to throw complaints at the artist later on Twitter. If Daisy Digital is to be trusted, apparently some of the photo assistants she had at the time felt like Beyoncé was easier to work with than Amanda. You know, like post for Beyonce once she started to become very careful over her image and her presentation and etc. The feature with Lady Gaga never came out, only being leaked on the internet in 2017, with this little video of Gaga clearly having bad memories when asked about Banks.
She's got a bad attitude. Yeah.
The latter even came out to say that Gaga was pushing her to have beef with Nicki Minaj, which kind of ruined the relationship between the three of them. The postponement of the album, plus a lot of the songs that Banks was putting independently on the internet having mixed receptions, had a massive attack on her momentum. And she fumbled so unbelievably hard on that Pharrell feature with ATM Jam, a song that is very bad and very cringe. Azealia later threw complaints at Pharrell, they never collaborated again. You could argue that I am being unfair, as the blame doesn't only lie with Azealia. And yes, I agree. The production by Pharrell in ATM Jam is garbage, Lady Gaga didn't seem to have a problem with R. Kelly and Nicki Minaj is, but these three are well known by their networking, their ability to connect and collaborate with other people. But the only time that they would be unpleasant to work with would be towards the same person. Like, at some time the problem has to be you. Anyways, the sentiment of Azealia being a sort of villain in pop was already well spread. At the very least, her new album would come out at the start of 2013. It did not. Her debut album took years to be done and had multiple delays. She said it would come out on 1 month, then it didn't, then she said it would come out on 3 months after that, and then it didn't, and it just kept going. Which I do believe to be not solely Amanda's problem, as she stated to have had a lot of problems with her label, as they forced her pretty hard to what they wanted the album to be, which happens. It's a common problem of the industry. Especially because Banks was still putting songs and mixtapes independently. Sometimes they also wouldn't come out, but sometimes they would. So yeah, this is like Kingdom Hearts 3. But before we even had 1, which if you know Kingdom Hearts, you know that those are just 3 games. Anyways, with a number of delays and convolutions and debates of which single was from the album or would be in the album and what would not be on the album, eventually in November of 2014, Broke with Expensive Taste came out, 3 years after the release of 212. Finally, let's talk about music. First off, love the album cover and name. Broke with Expensive Taste is a very simple but very catchy and relatable name. This expresses her idea of wanting royalty and prestige and power, but being somehow tied down by the truth of her surroundings. And the album art expresses that well. You have goldish brown partitures in this black background, but it looks damaged and used. And obviously we have the magazine collage-like picture of Azealia Banks in a leotard. The format in which this picture has been put gives me the idea of looking up to royalty because she's not a part of the picture, she has been put on it in a purposely amateurish way. The ballet clothes points to me at 3 interesting things. First, ballet of course is a very popular and technically demanding type of dance, reinforcing how important dance and control is to this album, or more so Azealia herself. Second, ballet is seen as a very honorable and prestigious dance. At the same time, at the very least on Brazil, it is also very accessible to many people of middle to lower class. And third, Azealia Banks mentioned that the clothes were chosen as an act of respect towards her father, who wished she would become a ballerina. Amanda's father passed away when she was only 2 years old. So, does this album explore the idea of richness and fame and perhaps the humanizing struggle to maintain images in pop culture at large? Hell no, this album isn't really about anything. If it is about something, it's just about trying to represent every single thing that Azealia Banks is and likes. We have rap, pop, dance music, mostly house, love, sex, power, an interest in witchcraft, and a spiritual connection with the sea. Because he is such a weird person, I find an album that explores, even if unconsciously, who Azealia Banks is as fascinating, so to me that is fine, but I also don't really contest the many critics that felt like the album could be messy or without a clear direction. Anyways, let's listen to the first track, that being Idol Delilah. The album starts slowly, one instrument at a time, calmly building the momentum with the drum machine, and eventually starting the groove for real with the bass, until Azealia clocks in at 45 seconds.
Idolist Delilah, darling, do you like beige in your coffee tea? A wild breeze on a day of dawn.
I really like this flow by Azealia because she's mixing her rapping with her singing. The tone is light in her voice, she seems to be singing about some type of tale or myth, so generally the vibe is a nice day with nature.
Darling, Miss Delilah, while you're wasting your days alone.
After the quick droning, things start to become a little more intense. This great beach guitar line is imbued with the rest of the groove, giving some oomph to the beat, and it seems like Azalea's lyrics are getting darker. We also have these chopped vocals coming in which its lightness and cuteness are meant to contrast with the rapper's next verse.
Slick snapper, soul clap on 3, high-hatted, a dip dapper, pretty pat this P, tip tap it, a chit chat, ready rap baby, can't deal with the bullshit, cause the crap ain't me.
You could argue that now the deep voice, more confrontational verse goes against the rest of the song, but it's a fun verse. Azealia once again great at creating flow, even if the lyrics are funny.
He said the puss deeper than the deep blue sea, indeed the puss deeper than the 3 fruit G's.
You know, like the Lauryn Hill group, the Fugees, because they make deep music. Like the deep blue sea. The song later gets into this weird part with the noise of monkey out of the blue, accompanied by an instrumental passage that I believe to be a xylophone, seeing how it appears other times in this album. The rest of the song is the instrumental. The xylophones, the chopped vocals, the bongos, and the guitar line come consecutively one after the other, once again creating that space and excitement for you to experience the rest of the album. But generally it's also just a very neat instrumental that I wonder, what do you even classify this? Is this like old school disco? The instrument sounds so nice, I presume it was a live performance of some sort. So it surprised me when I discovered that this is a sample of Pearson Sound's WAD. This is a piece of a genre called UK Funky, which is essentially a mixture of UK garage and house with African and Latin percussions, essentially the museum of electronic music. Jokes aside, it's a great beat. Pearson Sound is credited as the sole producer on the song, so I would imagine it's a will.i.am sampling himself in American Boy situation. The song is very similar to the sample, the difference in AB's version is the guitar line and the xylophone that once again gives the oomph that the song needed. But Azealia was talking to someone at the beginning of the track, right? Who was she talking to? Well, none other than Idol Delilah herself, who, quoting an Azealia tweet, Idol Delilah was the 6-year-old daughter of a famed white slave owner in the 1900s who was killed by her own father's slaves. Yeah, she's essentially talking to a spirit locked in a doll which is still trying to be happy even if she is literally dead. An interesting topic to talk about, to say the least. Clearly shows her interest in once again the mystic and perhaps occult, but I find the placement of this track and the fact that AB is even talking about this captivating. The story of this girl was biracial by references she throws on the track, innocently paying for the sins of her father, being a victim of a conflict, seemingly resonated with Azealia a lot. She doesn't explore this event in any way, but it's there. It's the literal first topic of the album. Let's proceed to the lighter second track, Gimme a Chance.
That's the way that I love can go. Carolina H fits hottest bitch from the block. Used to puff Phillies and Dutchies and stuff nicks.
The song already starts exploding with energy. The quick vocals cutting through Azealia's rapping to this funky bouncy bass, and the energetic drums immediately catches my attention. So it one-ups itself immediately by adding hip-hop's favorite instrument, the horns.
No risk, vocal and chosen. Opponents leave them dead in their own crib. Murder she wrote, she prefer it in cursive.
The energy, the boldness, the confidence that the song exudes is contrasted well by the shy vocals in the chorus, subtly aided by the chopped DJ vocals in the back.
That's the way that I love can go. Make a play and then not stone.
An interesting change of pace for Azealia. It's just funny that, you know, the voice isn't Azealia's. Once again, I'm surprised that such sharp textures are still samples. This time around in another country, in another genre, the samples knocked the door by Ina, a Japanese indie band. It also remains untouched save for the horns. It's a great instrumental because this is a post-punk song. Post-punk generally entails the mixture of aggression and simplicity of punk with other inspirations. In Knock the Door case, it's like a post-punch approach to funk. It's edgy, in your face and loud, but having that fun, light-hearted groove of funk. It's perhaps the most in-character sample Azealia could ever hop on, which she fully agrees because this is the first song Banks ever recorded.
I was on 145th Uptown on Linux and Crowns trying to order some fries.
You can find on the internet the first version of it. It's bad, but it's also the first rap song a 16-year-old ever recorded in like 2007. She loved the original song and decided to rap over it, and now she is doing that again to show that yes, she rose to the top. She has the money, she has the power. Absolutely an I Made It song that feels emotionally powerful as she is trying to show the world where she came from sonically and how much she is around the globe now. And what a better way to do that than yes, from Japanese post-punk we go to Latin music. Assisted by producer Oscar Cartaya, she sings and raps in Spanish, and the groove is generally good. It's a transition that doesn't feel disorderly because the horns were essentially foreshadowing this section, and they still continue to be the main riff of the song. The Latin groove isn't bad either. It generally feels like a very random but heartfelt approach to this genre.
Madre de los orichas, te pido bendigas esta música y la hagas santa.
Fun fact, the spoken word in the end that I presume to be Oscar as well, is he asking the mother of all orishas, Yemoja, to bless this beat. If you don't know what an orisha is, they are spirits or gods present in many countries of the African diaspora and Latin America as well. She is not only seen as the mother of all orishas, but also is constantly depicted as a sea lady. A great song, among the best, if not the best, song Azealia Banks ever recorded. I truly love this one, and it's one of the ones that I most return to. But we have an entire album to take a look at. So let's proceed to the third song, Desperado.
Yeah, you know what it is. It's Hot 97. My name is Peter Rosenberg, and we're gonna get into some new music right now. This is a record called Desperado. Okay, but
the jazzy beat with Peter Rosenberg shoutouts opens one of the sonically darker songs on Broke with Expensive Taste. Less because of the lyrics, they are rap braggadocious 101, this time around focusing on her looks and sex appeal, but mostly due to the reverbed horn that leads the whole instrumental that sounds like the cry of an animal.
Desperado.
Ups and ups, seductive pup, flux to the dip back up and strut.
Don't get me wrong, it sounds nice, but it's a little off-putting. You remove the drums from the song and you get a Billy Woods instrumental. It's another one that knows how to pace itself and have other minor effects going around in the track that does create an immersive song. You do get the feeling that you are at a scary version of a fashion show.
That's how I do my thing. Desperado. Hey yo.
This is another one where the producer credited is the same of the artist sample, this time around being Bandoleiro Desperado by AMJ Cole. It's a more traditional piece of UK garage and it's identical to the AMV version. I could not notice one difference in the beat of both of them. They are literally the same length.
Desperado.
You could notice this because the song has this very weird slowed bridge before going back to the loop that, yes, work very well in an instrumental dance song, but with rap it gets a bit weirder. The song sounds like it's going to finish, but it keeps going with another AB verse. I think it just kind of messes up the momentum.
I could be the perfect one, splurging on a purchase, yum, merging on a purpose one. When the verse is fun, I'ma rehearse this. Can't rehearse this, no.
I don't hate this track. I find it quite enjoyable, in fact, as this production meshes really well with her lower pitch delivery, but definitely it's not the first one I'm going back to listen.
Desperado.
So let's proceed to the next one, JFK. This one is Azealia's Banks' definitive fashion show, Vogue ball, whatever type of fashion event song. JFK sounds rich and powerful. At first glance it may seem quite simple, but as the song progresses, this beat really just starts to intoxicate your soul.
First lady of the floor, I'm sexy and Dior. As we go on and on and on, from the dusk to the dawn.
This is also one of Azealia's most vocally engaging tracks. In each part, she sings in different tones and flows, once again mixing her rapping with her singing. Like many critics have mentioned, yes, Banks' lower pitched voice made sound grating, but I really think in tracks like this that such performances are actually welcoming, although it does help that this is one of her best efforts lyrically.
I am this icon and a sword, a shade of green on your and a tour.
This is another one where I found the soundscape of the song to be unusually dark. I could once again see that scary fashion show happening right in front of my eyes as I listened to this. And that's what makes it good, baby. The producer, Bodica, since you have a knack for those things, as I search him up, he seems to be mostly a DJ that sometimes release some of his songs, and all of those have that dark rave element present in one way or another.
Grand champ is the bougie, the handsome, romance in advance, you born a Samsung, beach bunny from a Aruba, the can't come.
The great chorus is followed through by a short and very sweet verse by the only feature on the album, Theophilus London. He does a good job. I don't know if this song exactly was the best place for a feature such as him, but I thought it was a nice feature nonetheless.
Took a trip to the moon, JFK for the work.
The song enters another slowed and mysterious bridge. This time around I found it to be much more captivating. What sounds like echoed vocals in the background create a sense of drama and gives you the question, well, what will happen now? I mean, the build-up has been so slow, and if you take Desperado by example, it's probably just another random verse. That was great. I generally find this almost a cappella-like section to be such an euphoric moment in the song that ties the overall drama of it so nicely. I believe the hook is a little overwritten, so it can be hard to sing along to, but I just love the singing, love the flow, I love everything out of this track. Another personal favorite of mine. And if you're wondering why the name JFK, it's because she's killing it, stylously, like JFK, because he died. Next one we have Chew One Chew. Yeah, well, 3 years after the release of the song, it's still here. I mean, I understand wanting to put the song that defined you in your first record, but it does break the momentum and character of the album. You're listening to this progressive, well-constructed dance music from many different genres, creating very timeless sounds, and then you're right back at 2012. The voice also bothers me. You can see how Azalea's voice matured throughout this record, but 212 on the album still have the same vocals and effects of when she first recorded. It's just a cold bucket to take after all we listened to. Fun fact then, Lazy J worked in many different monikers, and after 212, another hit that he worked on was Scream and Shout by will.i.am. This is the third time I mentioned that man on this video. I don't have problems though, Brazilians love the Black Eyed Peas. This is also the third time I mentioned Brazil, certainly won't be the last, so let's go to the next one, Wallace. The main instrument of this composition are these really loud, epic drums. I'm pretty sure they were popular in pop music sometime around 2014-15. But here I find it great as well. Not only the bass and xylophone adds the needed volume of the track, but it contrasts so nicely to the lightest singing of band so far in the record.
If that's what you know, Wallace, I say you come and talk to me, beat me up.
The lyrics are also funny and interesting, as there are two themes she is simultaneously talking about. First one, that she is popular and very on demand, which consequently means that she is among the world, both figuratively and physically, which means that she cannot stay around to hang with you, but you can hang around with her if you are a good little dog, which is the second theme of the song. Dog, animal, you are her pet and will be completely submissive towards her. Which I think is kind of hot.
Yeah, I'm styling a starlet, a same car, a diamond, the party.
There's this bridge on the song that for the longest time confused me because she's singing with this like South Asian flute on the back. You know, like in cartoons when they are playing the flute and the snake rises from the pot. And then I understood the joke.
Bad well, yippee-yo, yippee-yay. Poochie, you big dog, but fight for a taste. Kid of your many cities, you looking for a late. Claiming a big ticket to pay what you say.
Before I forget this point, I do enjoy some of the references towards rap and other rappers that she does on many tracks on the record, because I think it reminds you that Azealia is not a singer that raps or an artist that is using hip-hop in an appropriative way. She is part of that community, has always been and will be, independently of what she says. It sounds like she just wanted to expand what could be sonically possible with rap in the mainstream rather than be separated by it. And that's pretty cool. Anyways, Wallace, the most overly pop song on the album, and it's great, it's fantastical, I love it. Fun facts of this song: the two producers credited are Young Skiddy, which I could not find a single thing about, and the other one is Turbo Tito, a Denmark producer that has worked a lot with Brazil's one and only Pablo Vittar. She has not stopped with the Asian fishing, by the way. Next track, heavy metal and reflective. The booming alarm sound of the opening is carried throughout the rest of the second single that was released for this album.
Friggy froze kept, it's that fresh bitch. I be in that prissy stone set with that wet wrist. Flighty bitch, that prissy bull with that necklace.
I think the moment in which this came as finally a crumb for this record delayed release, and the fact that it sounds so structurally similar to 212 and Count Contessa, as both are playing around with the same flow, clicked with some familiar plays with some people, but honestly, I find this song to be pretty boring.
I be cherry tiki when I swell up, get that best dick. I be very cheeky, bitch, I'm better, bet you red, bitch.
My biggest criticism is that it is repetitive. It's the same flow and beat that manages to tire me even in just 2.5 minutes. There's no interesting structure, no cool singing or switch up, and the beat sounds muddled, simple, and kind of empty. The most interesting thing about the song is this arca-like bridge where Azealia says this. Why is she making a Blade Runner reference?
Fiery the angels fell. Deep thunder rolled around their shores, burning with the fire of oak.
It's because, like, she's heavy metal, like a robot, so like a replicant. I know that this comes from like a poetry or something, but it's funnier when I think about Blade Runner. I mean, yeah, the lyrics is about how she can be rough and aggressive, but also thoughtful. Yeah, whatever, I don't buy it.
Loveliest thing I've ever heard.
Next, we got BBD. The alarm hypes up the trap banger on the album BBD. It's fine. It sounds old because it's a piece of mid-2010s trap, so it's much more excessive in its production compared to the minimalism that Metro Boomin and Migos brought up a few years later. So I just kind of see myself playing FIFA Street 2012 when I listen to this. I swear there's a UK rap song on there that sounds exactly like this.
Flossing on them haters, it's that boss, the bitch that kicker, trick that bone and tip that shaker, he forfeited all that paper.
The reason why I don't dislike it is that, all jokes aside, Azealia does bring some pretty good verses. She stretches it up, goes up and down, left to right. I love the pre-hook where she says,
They say I'm poison, what's the difference? BBD, Michael Bivins.
Michael Bivins being the founder of R&B groups New Edition and Belle Biv DeVoe, BBD that made the song Poison. It's a fun play on words, soon followed by the hook.
All my bad bitches do it, bad bitches do it, all my bad bitches do it.
I love the low energy of the delivery, it makes her sound even more badass. Although we have the return of Azealia Big Shoe Banks, and I appreciate the bad bitches anthem she tried to do here, I don't find it that interesting of a song. Not the worst, but not the best.
All my bad bitches do it, bad bitches do it.
Next, Ice Princess. We go all in with the mystical sea princess theme that AB consciously mentions on the track Ice Princess, which is another pretty mid-2010s attempt at a rap song with a poppy chorus.
I'm so cold, I'm dripping icicles. I go and take your man, that nigga might miss you.
I feel the same way towards BBD, but I'm a little less positive here. Once again, maybe it's just because of this type of production, it's not really on the moment anymore, so it's too old to sound exciting, but not old enough to sound nostalgic. Maybe 10 years from now I'll enjoy the song because I'll have nostalgia for the spirit, but at the moment, nah. Definitely not to criticize the effort that was made here, that piano, handbells, but you know, the instrument that sounds exactly like what an ice shard at the top of a cave would sound like, alongside the booming bass, creates an interesting contrast. It's cute, there's a sample in the chorus as well, an early 2010s house cut that sounds nice. Sounds way warmer than the rest of the track, so it just kind of feels like a warm bucket on the face. Sadly, this is one of Azealia's worst performances lyrically in this album. It's cold and water play on words that seems predictable and silly in the not so fun way. I mean, pay me coats and Benzes, it's a berg ice, that's why I do not feel these beaches, frostbite, grow money, ever since a youngin' made my own money, you broke honey and they call me Banks cause I can low money. Colder than December, my diamonds on one winter. So that's fly ice on my life. I don't see no limit, so I strive and shine twice. It's another one that there isn't much to say. The whole mid portion of this album is where so much of my criticism for it lies. It feels allergic to creative momentum. And it just doesn't sound like it matches together aesthetically with the songs at the beginning. This is the part where you can really feel the delays and mass of the production affecting the record. And thing is, we probably saved the worst for last. Danger. Okay, so before we cover this one, Young Rapunxel was the lead single of the album. Banks came out to say that this song was made after a breakup with her boyfriend at the time, and she was really mad, and obviously, as artists usually do, she decided to write a song to express that anger in a rave club rager banger. And second, I'm definitely not against those very aggressive types of industrial music. I've mentioned Arca before, and I'll surely mention them again. Like any non-black rap fan, I like Death Grips, and although I found those ear-blasting rave also type EDM to be try-hardy, I don't really have anything against them. So Azealia Banks coming out with an industrial-like EDM rage banger as the lead single to her album is a daring and bold act that should be respected, but this song is bad.
More cooler than this, switch, maneuver and dip, hip like the groove of the split, bitches rooted and sit.
You know, I feel like I'm on that moment of a Todd in the Shadows touring record video where he shows the song from the artist and then it's such an unbelievable mess that you don't believe the song is real. But this is very real. I once again mention, it's a respectful idea that comes from a genuine place, but this doesn't sound like an artistic expression of frustration. This is just anger. This is just throwing shit at the timeline and hoping it sticks. Which, I mean, you could argue that the messiness of it expresses well that idea of anger, but there's nothing to hold on here. The percussion is loud and noisy, but lacks volume, depth, intensity. Some of the effects are nice, the echoed vocals and the metallic honk that goes from left to right are fine, but everything else is just tiresome. I think this is a line where some musicians in EDM have to be careful, especially the more aggressive ones, because it's easy for you to try to do something pumping and guttural, but you can very easily end up to something that is wearisome, and this is a good example. I also don't have much to pick here from Azealia's vocal performance. It's a song that exists and I kind of wish it didn't, and the fact that it was the lead single from the album really perplexes me, seeing how literally any other song was better. If you like this song, that is fine, I respect your opinion, but after I'm done with this video, I don't really want to listen to it again. So let's go to what was supposed to be the lead single of the album, Soda. And we leave the least exciting section of the album by transitioning to this intro that literally sounds like you're rising to the surface after swimming on the beach, with the water leaving your ears, and when you start listening with more precision, you are granted one of the cutest songs on the record.
A smile at guys, I'm trying to hide behind tired eyes aside.
Soda is another great mix of pop, rap, and EDM. The beat is bubbly, the performance has an appreciated lightness after the much tougher performances she was doing previously, which is funny because this is the classic case of cute Riven's sad lyrics.
I used to be a girl. I used to be a...
Essentially feeling down even with the many cool things we were doing in life because, as we discover on the bridge, she has not gotten over that breakup that originated the previous track.
Been too busy, but I don't wanna deal with you. Been thinking about the way you treat me right, yeah.
It's relatable, very vibey, very light on the ears. I really feel like it was a missed opportunity not having this as the lead single. I feel like when Gen Z discovered this song, it may gain that sudden TikTok boost we've been seeing so constantly nowadays.
I'm tired of try not to cry, and I say soda, soda. I'm high roller, user. I post for the poster, yeah.
One final thing I find funny about this song is how the metaphor used here to describe the coping of the sad times is soda. Not drugs, not even alcohol, just soda. She can't stop drinking Coca-Cola, which I guess is equally dangerous because every other day I see an image saying how a soda can is equal to 7 kilos of cocaine, but whatever, great track.
I smile at guys, nighttime is wine, my eyes are wide at night.
Let's go now to Chasing Time.
Damn, nigga, damn. Took a chance on you, doubled and dipped again. Go! You could do it dance. Take a chance with your lover like this begins.
Things quickly build up in the pop rap bop of Broke with Expensive Taste, Chasing Time, which it's another favorite of mine.
Cause I'm born to dance in the moonlight. I feel like spending my nights alone.
You know what this reminds me of?
Yeah, I'm the female monster. 지금 사람들이 나보고 미친 것 같아. 너
K-pop isn't that different from Western pop, but I feel its biggest differing characteristic is that it sounds very. It's a lot. It's very busy, many things happening. And although I don't believe this was directly inspired by the sound of Korea, this still sounds a lot like K-pop because it's exploding with color, with sounds, with personality, and different from Young Rapunxel, all that noise is working together cohesively.
Am I chasing time? Cause I'm wasted all mine on you.
I love the wall of sound that just keeps increasing in the chorus. We go from hook to pre-chorus to chorus, and it just keeps getting louder and more complex.
Check my watch, I had the future in my pocket, but I lost it when I gave it to you.
But Azealia and the three producers on this song are just working in harmonies in ways that is honestly surprising, seeing the person who is in charge in all of this. The three producers are Oak, who produced songs for Nicki Minaj, Demi Lovato, Rihanna, even Disney. Steve Mostin, who produced a lot of tracks for Nicki Minaj, Miguel, Alicia Keys, and Flippa, who produced for Nicki Minaj, her, Rihanna, and was like one of the 10 guys in Kendrick Lamar's Wesley Theory, you know, his 8th best song. Really, an all-star of collaborators that came from similar backgrounds, and Azealia Banks did not lose the opportunity because this is one of her best performances.
Damn, nigga, damn. Took a chance on you, doubled and dipped again. Damn, scream, nigga, scream. Hit your mans up and tell him to get the vein in.
The vocals are on point, filled with charisma. She changed it when it was necessary, kept things fresh, and lyrically, this is her understanding that less is more. She doesn't overwrite hooks, she doesn't complicate her lyrics. It's easy, catchy, earwormy, with even a positive message at the end. Just a great track. I love this. So unbelievably sad this wasn't a hit. Check this one out, especially if you like K-pop.
When I gave it to you, yeah.
Next, we have Luxury. Luxury is another older cut from AB. It was on her fantasy mixtape, so I feel similarly to how I felt towards 212 being here. It breaks the excitement, and seeing how we are on a breakup arc on the album right now, this song about flirting with someone seems a little out of place. But I'm not that against it because aesthetically, Luxury fits very well in the album. Most of that comes from the excellent production by Machine Drum. The beat he made here is insane. It's ironic how the song came out 2 years before the album because it sounds exactly like the cover. It sounds like melted gold. It's luxurious and classy, but it's also intoxicating and dark. It's hard to describe what this even sounds like. I don't think I've heard anything like it. It's too low-key to be EDM, it's too slick to be pop, it's too progressive to be hip-hop. It's a big genre bending of everything we've heard on the album so far. But I have problems in saying that this is a great or one of her best songs, and that comes in Azealia's performance. It definitely seems so cheap, which goes against the luxury thing. The song literally opens with
Hey, hi, hello, yeah, what's up, my boy, what's word, could I call ya?
Like, you're seeing how amateurish the writing here generally is. Even if the flow is cool, the lyrics just don't really hit me because it was clearly made by at least skilled and resourceful Azealia. Looking back at it, I wish she did the same here on what she did in Gimme a Chance. in essentially rewriting the song, but to fit the mood and the skills she had during the album. This might be a curse of this beat though, because the song already had a different verse entirely. It was called Competition at the time, but Azealia threw it away and made it again. But I think she may have needed to do it again. I still dig this, love getting back on it, and when it started to become popular in TikTok, I felt very vindicated.
You, with you now, I can't forget you, get you now.
Next one, we have the weirdest song on the tracklist, Nude Beach Go-Go.
Teenage Verona, sipping Coca-Cola. Teenage Verona, mama can't control her.
Okay, so this is a cover, but not from the time you may expect. This is a cover of Ariel's Pink's Nude Beach Go-Go, which is from his album that would come out a week after Broke with Expensive Taste. I just know this album because it appears sometimes in the background of some Anthony Fantano videos.
Pom pom, pom pom. You can do anything a new beach go-go. Ram-a-lam-a ding-dong, surfer Billy ding-bong, new beach go-go.
There's a big difference between the two versions. In the Ariel Pink one, the quality is very lo-fi. It sounds like you're watching this weird commercial from a CRT about a nude beach event. It's like an Elvis Presley song if it was sampled by The Caretaker. In Azealia's version, she is playing this super straight with a big smile on her face.
You can do anything a new beach go-go. Ram-a-lam-a ding-dong, surfer Billy bing-bong.
Like, why is it in the 50s beach pop throwback where she's giving her happiest performance? It's so out of the blue, a bit cringy as well. It's clear why this is like the least popular song of the record, but she seems so invested in this track. It cringes its way back to being charming.
There's no clothes to wear, and there's summer in the air.
I don't know, it feels gimmicky, which is why I don't really come back to the song. But seeing how much Azealia talks about her sexuality and how much she's obsessed with the sea, an old school beach rock throwback doesn't seem that out of the blue. But anyways, we're finally in the last two tracks of the album.
At Nude Beach,
So, Amanda came out to say that the next track was supposed to be the first single of the album and had a side B included with it. It didn't turn out to be, and the side B wasn't really finished, so she decided to include those tracks as the last two of the album. First off, we have Miss Amor. The xylophone makes its comeback as the backbone of the song. The reverb gives a sense of darkness and unpolishedness to the song too, something that I love because I believe this to be an underrated instrument. Works better with hip-hop than you may expect. Shout out to the best West Side Gun song, by the way.
I went downtown to Bristol Freaks. I got a job in the view with Hebrew G. Sugar bump, pump, 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 pump.
In perhaps the most Azealia Amanda Banks move ever, the opening lines of the track is a Jewish controlling all the money conspiracy reference with random mouth noises accompanied by it. The latter is a constant in the song. Someone must have told her that she overrides a little too much on some segments, so she decided to not write at all. And some of these verses are finished by just not even beatboxing, it's just sounds that she's making with her mouth. The lyrics are also not anything new. She's cool, she's powerful, and she's looking for love. And said all of that, I still think this is one of the best songs on the album. First off, love the energy of the song. It builds, it hypes itself up, the production creates a drama that holds you until you are hit with a great and progressive chorus by the rapper. The xylophone is accompanied by this staccato synth line that continues through most of the track. I want to say this reminds me of drum and bass, although mostly because of the drum kit going crazy on the back of the song. Azealia also knows how to ride this beat. She's literally only playing with words at this point, but she compensates in how she's constantly changing her tone and her flow. This song also works very well with her constantly memed lower pitched voice. This is another great encapsulation of Amanda as an artist. It's a silly one, yes, I understand why would someone not really get it or enjoy it as much as I do, but this just works for me. It's a great instrumental alongside a very fun vocal performance. It's really hard for me to dislike this one. It really could have been a great single and finishing track. So finally, let's see how she decided to wrap things up in the last track, Miss Camaraderie. The song already opens up with a sped up version of the previous beat, which once again remind you was supposed to be the single and this one the side B of it.
It's the sound, hippin', now when I hip you how get down, get tied up and twirl me, twist you, pal.
Then we have Amanda rapping in the same flow as Luxury, drenched in the mix of the beat, which I think gives out to the already trained listener that maybe this is a demo. Either it was a collection of parts Azealia put together, or was something supposed to be worked upon. This does feel the most unpolished track of the record anyway, so does this make it a bad ending song? By no means, I really like this tune.
What up, what is you with Rock Wall? Let me hit you. Ayo, hound, be my little listen, Lord, I might have seen a swat.
Lyrically, Banks is simple but very catchy, using the same flow as the one at the beginning of Luxury, but ironically in a more finesse way. The breathy vocals match with the rest of the production, which gives me the sense that this was more planned out at first than it seems. And in typical house fashion, the lyrics becomes less present as the beat and sound effects takes more space. There's even a change in the drum kit to slow things down and create a groovy different flow as Azealia's voice is slowly lost in the mix, with the final touch being that horn soaring for the last time. I don't know how planned it was, but this song having little motifs and references to the previous cuts, trying its hardest to give a sense of cohesion to the album, turned out to be a great song that, with its vibes, it's a melancholic and fun goodbye to the record. So I want to give a special shout out to the producer of the previous two tracks, Lone. Lone just gets Azealia Banks. He and Machine Gun are the best producers she ever worked with. They know it's important to be flashy, hard-hitting, and layered in a genre like this, but their beats are never overly busy or take attention out of the rapper. If you have a favorite AB song, they are probably involved in some capacity. But it's important to understand that Azealia Banks is not carried by the beats. It's amazing how diverse the collection of samples and sounds that she receives on this album and never feels out of tempo or out of place. The girl knows what she's doing, and her beachy charisma, her stupid confidence, and her relatable silliness gives the color that these dark beats needed. And even with its many flaws, it has maintained to me as one of the most raw, exciting, and unique records of mainstream hip-hop, perhaps of all pop rap, and especially should have been the breakthrough moment of hip house. But it wasn't. Going back to real life, the album did fine numbers, its timeless is proven time and time again by how many people discover it, and Azealia still manages to get good numbers on her shows, but all the momentum and superstardom that she could have won was lost. And it doesn't help that she has never been that consistently great again. She put out some other songs that I like the Big Big Beat and Unknown Tour, but her catalog became so much more inconsistent and unenjoyable, partly because a few months before Broke with Expensive Taste came out, she wasn't part of the label anymore. She lost her manager sometime around this part too, so she was just bleeding money, resources, and people just didn't want to work with her. And you can feel how inferior the quality of her tracks became on her next mixtape, Slay Z. That is very mid. It's very mid. A lot of the people that she worked with in Broke with Expensive Taste didn't collaborate with her anymore, including Lone and Machine Drum. And we are where we are today, with her being famed as the needlessly problematic Twitter girl in a world that would love her. Hip house is a great genre that should be explored more, but I haven't found many artists, even in the underground, working with it. I mean, Vince Staples flirted with it a bit. Yaeji makes house with hip hop a bit, but she seems more interested in some artsy electronics now. Decade Maitza is someone I saw people heavily comparing to Azealia, but I find her songs to be mid. And in 2022, the biggest stars in music, Beyonce and Drake, released their house cuts with hip hop's elements in it. It didn't really hit me. None of them really filled the gap that Amanda left, which for a long time frustrated me. And I don't feel alone in this anymore, because when I joined TikTok, I discovered that young people love house music. There's always a house cut kinda popping up out of nowhere and becoming popular in the platform. For the purposes of this video, there's a song, I believe it's called Fun by Level 1. And that's just an Azealia Banks song. That's just an Azealia Banks song. It's the Cat Kitty Cat song, in case you don't know. And TikTok knows that, because Azealia Banks is popular there too. Luxury, Miss Camaraderie, Count Contessa, people love these songs. Which raises the question: can Azealia Banks come out again with a new cool record and recapture what was lost in this new Gen Z world? No. In 2021, Amanda collaborated with Arca, you know, the cool non-binary icon who I mentioned a couple times in this video, the avant-garde glitch pop and reggaeton producer that worked with FK Twigs, Kanye West, Bjork. Well, these two artists that I loved collaborated together and made not only one, but two dog shit songs. They're horrible. Azealia agreed. She was bigoted and misgendered Arca on purpose. They don't talk anymore. The end. This has been 10 years after 212, by the way. Azealia is hard to work with. We never know the details of how so, but she's probably just a very bad human being to work with. But why? Why did this happen? Why does this keeps happening? Well, I saved the AB's story for last because she had a pretty fucked up childhood. She was born in 1991, ironically a pretty important year for house music, but her father died when she was 2 years old. Following that, her mother moved her and her two sisters to Harlem, and her mother was a piece of shit, a quote from Azealia herself. After my dad died, my mom became really abusive, physically and verbally. Like she would hit me and my sister with baseball bats, bang our heads against the wall, and she would always tell me I was ugly. I remember once she threw out all the fruit in the fridge, just so we wouldn't have anything to eat. That is beyond the levels of fucked up. She then moved away with her older sister when she was 14 and attended a high school of arts and literature where she was one of the only black people in there, and that I do not wish for my biggest enemy. But she endured all of that because she wanted to follow the dreams of her life. Yes, that being becoming an actress. She auditioned to many different TV shows, movies and theaters, but wasn't called to any of those. Frustrated, she left high school and started to make some rap songs because that's part of the beauty of hip-hop, being the way many black people use to improve their condition and have their voices heard. She started with the Miss Banks moniker and managed to sign to XL Records after succeedingly networking with Diplo, and she hated that. Apparently they just didn't take her very seriously, did not work well with her, and she describes it in a way that sounds like she could have been harassed in some way. She left, started using the Azealia Banks name, used the internet again, found a guy named Lazy J. The rest is history. We separate a lot of celebrities and artists from us. And yes, they're rich, they're part of the 1%, they probably aren't very good people, but they are still human, for better and for worse. And all that fame doesn't come lightly. I started the video talking about people that didn't handle it well. I can't say accurately what happened with her, but it's clear that the person Azealia Banks is today was shaped by trauma and the defensive mechanisms that came with that trauma. And she was too young to handle it well, which does not mean that she is entirely misunderstood or innocent. The thing that Azealia talks about hurts. Transphobia hurts and causes traumas. Homophobia hurts and causes traumas. Bigotry hurts and causes traumas. And most often than not, we don't see the perspective of the unfamous people affected by it. I got daddy issues, that's on me. That's a line from Kendrick Lamar's 28th best song, which I was thinking about it a lot when I was writing this section of the video. He recognizes that he grew up in a toxic environment with his father and the way how he dealt with the word affected Kendrick, and consequently he started to show aspects of that toxicity in his new family and day-to-day life. But he understood that although he is a victim, that does not justify the pain that he is causing to the people around him, and that he has more than enough resources, being money, being time, being people close to him, to actually start improving as a person after those traumas. While Azealia, with her fear of connecting with people, seeing how deeply disturbed she understands people to be, takes pride in the fact that she is a hard-to-deal woman. She takes pride in her villainous image. Attachment is tragic. I want to finish this video by talking about this interview Azealia Amanda Banks made right before the release of Broke with Expensive Taste, where she says, "I know it sounds really self-centered, but I'm sort of obsessed with myself. I have to be, because it's the only way I can stay focused. That's the theme of the album. If you don't take care of yourself, no one else will. It's about a girl doing everything she can to achieve her goals, to make it somehow, some way."